in Los Altos today at Foothill College, speaking with Foothill President Judy. Foothill educates 20,000 students. It's in the heart of Silicon Valley, and it's a cross-section, represents a cross-section of Valley's population. So thank you for speaking with us, Judy.
Thank you for having me today.
Now, I know it's been a difficult year everywhere in California, perhaps even more for the state's 110 community colleges. So how severe have the cuts been, and how's it affected your mission?
Well, we certainly are trying to do everything that we can in order to preserve our service of the primary missions of transfer, workforce development, and basic skills. As you mentioned, we're at 20,000 students. Last year we had been at 19,000, and we anticipate that approximately 900 of those students that represent our growth will not be funded by the state because of the downturn in the economy and the cuts that the state had to make. Here in Silicon Valley, we really are very much a regional college in that we serve nearly 40% of our student body from the immediate district service area, which would be Palo Alto, Mountain View, Los Altos Hills, and even the De Anza service area of Cupertino and Sunnyvale. And another 35% of our enrollments come from our neighboring districts, and that would be West Valley Mission, San Jose Evergreen, and San Mateo Community College District. The students come for a variety of reasons. Probably it would be fair to say that about 30% come with transfer in mind, another 30% come because they want to get a job, and we have a great many high-quality workforce prep programs, particularly in the allied health area. We have another 30% who aren't quite sure what they want to do. So they end up exploring with us. And then the remaining 10% typically for lifelong learning experiences. So they're individuals who just want to take a class with us because they're particularly interested. So looking at the broad array of reasons why students come to us, and as we look at how do we deal with downsizing the institution, because the state has basically directed us to do that. We had to take a 4% cut for this year. For Foothill, with our budget being a little bit over $60 million, that translates for us to about $2.6 million, and it really had to come out of positions. All in all, we're looking at elimination of 43 positions that have occurred for this year, and that resulted in a 14% reduction in our administrative staff, a 9% reduction in our classified or support staff, and a 6% reduction in our faculty. That ended up translating, as you might not be surprised, to fewer courses. And the areas that took particularly large hits had to do with areas in which we lost funding. So our disabled student programs and services took a very deep hit, particularly in adaptive physical education, which has been a large part of our serving our community. And other areas really required us to have more classes because there was such huge demand, particularly in mathematics and in social sciences. So while we were having to build in some areas, other areas took even deeper cuts. That included physical education, foreign languages, travel careers, and our radio program. Mm-hmm. So those are areas that took a even much larger hit. Mm-hmm. In addition to the classroom setting, student services, which includes our counseling area, our tutorial, direct aid to students. I mentioned disabled students, right, programs and services. That's part of a group of categorical funding, which often serves the least prepared and the most economically disadvantaged, right, population. So EOPS, which stands for Extended Opportunities Programs and Services, took another huge hit as well.
So how has this affected students? I mean, let me know if I'm a student who's working on an associate's degree to transfer, or if I'm a student who first in my family to go to college and I'm coming here, or give me some examples of how these cuts have affected the people you serve.
Well, in the case of the classroom, students are not going to have as many options. And while it may sound, well, isn't that a shame? They don't have as many options. There are real life consequences for these students. In some instances, it could mean delay of transfer. because we may not be able to offer something every quarter. And so if they miss an opportunity in the fall quarter, it could be an entire year that would delay their being able to transfer. And then whether or not there is space for them as the UCs and CSUs cut back on their own admissions, that really could mean somebody does not get in somewhere subsequently. In the case of workforce development, it could be the difference of being able to be ready to get a job at the end of a quarter or the academic year as to whether or not they get in there. Other pressures that also build up, think about what it might mean for a single parent who has childcare issues that center around the availability of classes at certain times of the day and even locations. So it's so complex when you think about our students' lives.
And your underserved populations who come to you, and I know Foothill has tried to provide counseling and other services. I'm assuming that's been affected as well?
Hugely. We no longer have the money to hire part-time counselors, so our full-time counselors really carry a huge burden for the increased numbers of students with diminished resources. Again, in EOPS, the reduction in the amount of money that we can give to students for book vouchers or student loans to help them stay in school, that's one end of the spectrum that probably affects a great many students. But there are two instances that I can share with you that I think really illustrate how extreme this can be for students. There is one student who started with us a year ago in allied health, and he has had to sleep in his car because he moved away from the area but didn't want to lose the chance of staying in the program and finishing. He's sleeping in his car because he's now driving from a long distance. And one student who shared a story of being hungry because he made a choice to work less and go to school more because of the fear that classes wouldn't be there later, or that he needs to be out in the workforce. So these are tough choices our students are making.
Now looking ahead, I wish we could say this were a one-year occurrence, but looking ahead, I know you budgeted for this year to get you through. Forecast what you see coming down for next year and a couple years ahead.
Probably for this year we will still experience mid-year cuts, so we're bracing ourselves for that and have set aside some dollars in anticipation what could be a 1% drop. For next year, we do believe it will be worse, and we're not quite sure what that would look like. So again, we're trying to conserve as many of the reduced dollars that we have this year to go into next year. But we do anticipate that there will be more layoffs than we have even identified thus far as of June 30th because of the additional reductions in categorical programs.
Now I know that community colleges have gone through cycles before, but how would you compare this, and how do you think that what we're going through now will affect the overall mission of the community college system in California and our workforce development and people's opportunities for jobs and careers?
This is my 30th year as a community college administrator. I started the year after Prop 13. It is much worse than that. I think in large part because it's really about a much bigger economic crisis than what happened as a particular California phenomenon in 1979, in the year following Prop 13. I do think that we are going to have long-term effects in all of this because of the lack of capacity for us to move individuals through the system, both for higher ed and going into the workforce. And it makes me fearful about California's competitive edge and the problems that we face in the future by not having an educated workforce and an educated citizenry in the pipeline now. When you think about the kinds of innovation and the sorts of progress, particularly in Silicon Valley, I don't believe these were overnight successes, but seeds were planted earlier on in the Valley's history or in the state's history to build up to have that kind of capacity. I think we absolutely have to turn it around for the Valley in order to turn it around for the state. I really do. And
sobering thoughts.
yes.
Thank you, Judy, for speaking with us. With Judy Miner at Foothill College today, talking about community colleges. This is John Fensterwald for Educated Guests. Thanks for listening.